It don't matter what I try, I just can't win and I don't know why. There's a fork in every road, I pick the wrong one and then I go. American loser, yes I am, disenfranchised from everything. Well, I fall up and I fall down, an American loser the day I was born.
Hello, folks. We're back with another edition of American Loser. This one's going to be very interesting. You've heard of the concept of the walking wounded. The walking wounded specifically being in that one iconic image of the Spirit of 76 with guys marching in the American Revolution, holding the American flag, playing the flute, playing the drums, but all wearing different versions of bandages and masks all over their face. Today's version of the walking wounded is fresh out of dental surgery. My Delph of a dad, Lawrence Patrick. How are you?
Oh, we're doing fine, Kev.
You sure?
Absolutely, absolutely. Right, we're going to kill this today.
Ming asked that you just, if you can bleed on the floor instead of the table.
Try to catch, yeah, I know. It's body fluids and stuff is not good, especially in a COVID situation. But
absolutely, no sneeze. Sneeze guards are up, but blood guards we got nothing for. Bloodborne pathogen kits are on the ready.
Hey guys, we have a new red sound filter to shared universe. It's a brand new design.
Wet pickup in aisle 3.
And speaking of the walking wounded here, almost like he was a trucker who was late on getting to a way station and had to take a bunch of mysterious red pills on hour 48 or something like that straight. The big kahuna behind the ones and twos, brother.
What's
How are you?
What's going on, guys? How are you?
I'm happy to see you this morning. We normally don't get you this early in the morning, so I'm happy, pal.
It's all good. I'm oddly enough, even though I haven't really slept that well for a while, I'm just like, I still wake up mad early, so I'm just like, okay, I can start doing morning shows again. I could be trusted.
Nothing wrong with that, man. So happy to have you in there in the studio. If you guys don't know, the show's called American Loser. It is a show that puts the spotlight firmly on second place. We love to tell weird stories from American history. We've picked up quite a little bit of a fan base along the way, so we want to say thank you so much to all those people out there who do listen on the regular. I want to go in especially big shout out to the good people over at Patreon, our founding losers. We hit our number, Dad. That was a dream to hit that number.
Absolutely.
So that was originally wanted to hit 56, one for every signer of the original signer of the Declaration of Independence. We have now surpassed that. Then we have a couple people that are like, hey, I want to donate one time and then delete whatever. But you know what, guys? Make sure you get me your addresses if you're over on the Founding Losers. We have merch coming, okay? I already had stickers made. I had some some buttons made. There's something else on the way we won't reveal just yet. But I think we're hearing more about that later today. You said, right, Dad?
Yeah, I already got the text, or the email, rather.
Hell yeah.
We'll share that later.
That's going to be a thing. But we have to be able to mail those things to you guys, and I want to get that done before I sojourn down to Jacksonville, Florida. It used to be when I moved back up here to New Jersey after my time in Jacksonville with the military that I was moving back up to New Jersey to expand my comedy career. Now, because 2020 is so backwards, I'm moving down to Jacksonville because there's more opportunities to perform. So thank you, shutdown. But we got a lot of stuff going on here. So do me a favor, if you guys want to jump on over on the Patreon, you do get access to all the back episodes too. So if you're really a cheapskate, as our good buddy Andy High Roller pointed out, you can just donate the one time, listen to all the episodes, binge listen to them, and then not renew your subscription. I ask that you help me out a little bit, man.
Yeah, we can do a little better than that.
Yeah, if you can, help me out a little bit.
That's what you got to do. That's what you got to do.
Yeah, or give us a $20 donation or something like that. Then listen to all the episodes and then delete it, whatever you want to do, man. We'll figure out a way to do a PayPal thing if people want to just make a straight donation.
Are you guys able to fill up the tank yet for the truck to get here?
We are. We are.
You surpassed the goal.
It's very exciting.
Damn.
And in order to, we're going to keep our relationship with the studio too, while I'm down in Jacksonville, because Larry has to turn into South Beach Larry soon. You're going down to Pompano sometime after New Year's. I'll be down before New Year's in Jacksonville. So for 2 months, we're going to have to figure out ways to do remote shows, which is going to be the sound quality's way up. Kahuna works his ass off here. Ming is an evil genius. We're going to succeed. The show will continue. There will not be a break like there was this time last year when things really got grim. So we want to keep that bad boy rolling for you. And the best way to help us do that, guys, we are like PBS, but for alcoholics. Viewer donations is pretty much what keeps us alive here. So I want to say thank you so much to those guys here. And feel free to hit us up over on social media. And real quick, Kahuna, you got a project coming up. Did you want to plug anything? Because this episode's coming out this coming Tuesday.
Yeah, I'm dropping a Christmas song.
Hell
I'm actually
yeah.
dropping 2. I wrote like this kind of old-timey kind of thing called I Saw Santa Claus, and I'm releasing this Friday? Next Friday. Wow. My concept of time is fucked up right now. I'm sorry, guys. And then the week after that, I'm releasing another song called 'Tis the Season to Shine. Because I was going to do a whole album this year, but then my computer shit itself, and I lost that whole thing. So I was like, all right, let me pick up the pieces and just put something out, because I'm just like, because if I don't, I'm going to hate Christmas forever. I'm going to turn into the Grinch. I'm going to like turn green too.
Ebenezer Kahuna. But we do want to play, because you're insanely talented, dude, man, and you play the faithful sidekick on this show, but you are such a prolific artist in your own right, man. So I do want people to support your work on that one. So
I appreciate that.
We don't give your name away on the air, but you can if you pay attention to some of the Instagram posts and the Facebook posts. We do tag.
It's an open secret.
Right.
That's right. Also, great game on Sunday, man. You put a lot of pressure on Russell Wilson and the Seahawks. But that being said, guys, I think we got all the announcements out of the way here. I want to dive right into this topic, Dad. We got a damn good one here today. And I want to say thank you to you for fighting through this thing. You're a tough guy, man, but we're going to talk about some tougher people today.
Yeah,
okay?
amen, brother.
You know, I may have walked off an ACL tear to get back to my hotel room in Atlantic City. You might be having parts of your jaw removed right now, but we're going to talk about some tough dudes today here. So today's episode, obviously, if you paid attention to the title, is Operation Ivory Coast, which I'm going to refer to as the perfectly executed mistake. So a little heavy stuff up here, so it's tough to make jokes about this. You will find places where we can tell a good story and maybe crack a couple jokes down the line here. But obviously, you see a flag sometimes, and this flag doesn't matter what your political opinions are, doesn't matter who's in office, who the president is, what the war was. There's one flag that if you ever disrespect this, I think you have some serious soul searching you have to do. And that flag is POWMIA. That's prisoner of war, missing in action. And underneath the flag, it says, "You are not forgotten." In fact, right across the street from our studio, the Shared Universe podcast studio in Eatontown, New Jersey, where Mike and Ming take great care of us, there is a couple of flags that are up there, an American flag, a couple of the military flags,
Absolutely.
and the POWMIA flag. Super, super important. But the idea of being a POW or going missing in action, it's one of the heaviest parts of military service. The idea that if you are indeed captured by the enemy, you could immediately be killed, right? We've covered enough massacres on this show that surrendering is not exactly the safest option. Or you could be kept prisoner. And the thing with being captured is that you have no idea how long or painful your internment might be. It could be a dignified affair, like in many older wars, where the ranks of the prisoners were respected and men are treated relatively well as just kind of civil combatants. There's very weird stories, like lots of accounts in World War I of prisoners being treated so well, German prisoners being treated so well by their British captors that they start to realize how much they have in common. And it's almost like there's also a little thing where they begin to wonder, why are we even fighting in the first place, man? We're, you're Christian too. You guys celebrate Christmas? That's crazy. You guys have a birthday cake? Oh my God, that's nuts. Your dad's a farmer?
That's funny enough that you mentioned Christmas. Isn't there like a really famous story that was like a Christmas ceasefire?
Yes.
But I forgot who it was between, but I know that story.
It would be in Europe in World War I.
World War I.
That they actually, there was a ceasefire and then they all started singing Christmas songs.
Wow.
Yeah, back and forth. And a lot of the higher-ups were like, all right, beautiful moment. That shit's never happening again because now we're going to have a real hard time getting these boys to shoot at each other again.
Right.
So, but wild story. Good point, Cahoons. Now, again, that's World War I. That's European powers. That's the military is like a dignified field to go into. That's a war where you're fighting for the glory of your country, and there's a lot of other stuff. Now, this is a different kind of war we're going to be covering today. This is absolutely far from the case with America's war in Vietnam. Americans were being held prisoner, and despite anyone's feeling on the war itself, those boys, they got to come home. with the zeitgeist, none other than my DILF of a dad, Lawrence Patrick, who, ladies, please stop DMing me about him. He's very happily married to my mom, all right? So, but give us the zeitgeist, which is interesting to come from you this week because you lived during this.
Well, yeah, I was within that realm of time period, yeah. Well, the Vietnam War, how are we going to compile, in a couple of minutes, but there's a war in Vietnam. The whole thing started really way back when with the French taking over Vietnam, parts of China, Laos. I mean, that was the French Indochina back in the 1880s, really.
The height of imperialism and having you weren't a real power unless you had a colony kind of
So
thing.
there's all kinds of European powers that are making inroads into into Asia. We're going to fast forward that a little bit. There's a guy named Ho Chi Minh that he's a nationalist for the Vietnamese people. He is trained in Russia, starts to turn into communist type thoughts. He's really looking just to get rid of all these foreign powers out of his native country.
Some similarities to Cuba, where it's like maybe we're not going to jump onto, maybe we're not willing participants in this new political ideology that's coming through, but it's different than the capitalists that are clearly taking advantage of the country.
Right. So, I mean, the Vietnamese people were fighting the French. Then we fast forward into the 30s and into the 40s. Now we have the Japanese taking over in Vietnam. So the Vietnamese people are fighting the Japanese. World War II ends. Then there's different discussions, if you will, as to how is this going to now the return back to the Vietnamese. The French are now making moves to come back into Vietnam again because the French were busy fighting the Germans during the Second World War. Long and short, the Vietnamese people have been fighting foreign powers, for 100 years at this point. Starting with the French, then the Japanese. There's a major battle of the Vietnamese against the French at Dien Bien Phu, where they were wiped out. The French decided that, hey, we're out of here. America starts to help out the French. And really, it's the whole Cold War thing that we can't let Vietnam fall to the communists. Because the Vietnamese people are starting to get some backing from what is now communist China and the Soviet Union. So Eisenhower is in office in the 50s, and he's the one that coins that whole phrase about the domino theory, that we can't let Vietnam fall to the communists, because if one country falls, then there's
everyone
a domino effect that
yep.
everybody surrounding is also going to go communists. So anyhow, we're embroiled into the whole Vietnam thing. In support of the French, we get embroiled into that whole thing, trying to prevent the communists to further expand into, the markets, the various nations. So yeah, we're rolling up into this thing, and now it's just the war just keeps escalating and escalating. By the 1960s. Eisenhower is out, and in 1960 and in 61, very charismatic, handsome guy by the name of John F. Kennedy becomes president of the United States. He's a World War II veteran himself. He's actually the first American president that was born in the 20th century. So he's a young guy. He's a charismatic guy. He's up and coming. There's a whole different attitude within the United States about, hey, this is our time. This is really going to be our golden age type of thing.
How's that end for him?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
It doesn't go well. I mean, lose reception. JFK in his first 3 months in office gets embroiled with a little thing called the Bay of Pigs down in Cuba. Again, we're still fighting the communists, but now we're a little closer to our own home shores. So this whole, fighting communists and the Iron Curtain and the domino theories and all these types of things, they're all coming into play.
It's a geopolitical mess post-World War II. I think that's fair to say.
Worldwide now, too. And then the Soviets, by this time, also have nuclear weapons to counteract the United States, who initially were the only ones that had nuclear weapons. So, I mean, things are definitely tense. JFK is assassinated in 63. Johnson comes in. Lyndon Johnson comes in as president. Lyndon Johnson tries to he further escalates the war in Vietnam to stop the communists. He also introduces the Great Society idea that kind of splinters the Democratic Party. That he's trying to do things at home to bring about change in the United States on the home front. At the same time, we're fighting a war on the other side of the world. The 60s are turbulent. There's no doubt.
One point, too, is that JFK started our involvement in Vietnam with in an advisory role, and then we slowly start escalating, and then LBJ's putting more people on the ground. And then obviously the president, who's going to be the president during the event we're about to talk about, he's got some wild ideas about how involved we're going to get over there.
Yeah, and a definite communist hater, if you will. But after Kennedy is shot, and Johnson comes in, as you say, that there's a huge escalation of the war, that we're going to stop this at any cost. At the same time, Johnson is trying to make some programs on the home front work out. It's where we see the introduction to Medicare. We see some model cities program type of a thing. There's political unrest with the black community, with the gay community. I mean, we just had a celebration of an anniversary of the Stonewall riots. That was really 1969, but we're moving up. There's a lot of unrest. Whether it's Native Americans, whether it's the black community, whether it's the gay community. That's how dumb I am,
by the way, is that when I hear Stonewall riots and I find out it's about the gay community in New York, I was like, man, they really were supporting the Confederacy, that diehard.
So that was the name of the bar.
A little ignorance on my part that I had to do some research.
Stay in the Confederacy.
Yeah. There you go. So we're in turbulent times here. There's riots. There's just a whole lot of unrest. Then Johnson tries to push through the Civil Rights Act, which is going to prohibit discrimination in public places, Voting Rights Act. So there's a lot of things on the home front that's really in turmoil, and there's a lot of things, of course, on the other side of the world in Southeast Asia with Vietnam, where that thing is still going. Then we had in Vietnam something called the Tet Offensive, which
68.
Huh?
The Tet, just for a timeline here, Tet Offensive is going on in 68.
68,
We've covered now another little, he's not directly involved in today's story, but one of our legendary episodes about Navy SEAL God, Demo Dick Marcinko. He was boots on the ground during Tet Offensive.
Another loserception.
Oh,
absolutely.
He was dropping bodies over there. So
we have some real winners of names on this podcast. Like, what an awesome name!
and little foreshadowing, we got a hell of a name for later.
Oh yeah, we got one that's coming up. But through the early 60s, we're fighting in Vietnam, and we're thinking it's really just communist insurgents, and we're in the Viet Cong and that kind of stuff. And then the North Vietnamese army starts coming across the borders into South Vietnam, because by this point, the country has been divided. There's North Vietnam and there's South Vietnam, and the North is the communists originally under Ho Chi Minh, and then the South Vietnam was supposedly democratic, but we saw like at least a dozen different regimes in a short period of time, that it was like just a revolving door of government that was back and forth. So the South was not real strong politically. But the Tet Offensive was a game changer because in that particular time, they were able to launch like 100 different attacks in South Vietnam in 100 different places, all synchronized at the same time, that it became crystal clear, very apparent that, hey, this is more than just a bunch of guerrillas out in the jungle that are fighting for, their communist ways. This is a very well organized machine, if you will, that we're up against it here. So there's a further escalation with that. But the American public starts to begin to realize there's no real way out of this, that, these people want to go they want to go in the communist direction type of a thing. And we're the only ones that are really stopping it. Johnson is so upset by this that he refuses to run for president again. Again, he had that another loserception where, if nominated, I will not.
The William Tecumseh Sherman quote.
Right. If nominated, I will not run, and if elected, I will not serve, type of a thing. So he's out. So enter the next
picture. By the way, as soon as LBJ makes that announcement that it is, go ahead and say the name.
Richard Milhouse Nixon.
But just picture him sliding in like in Risky Business with just the go dun 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 dun.
Yeah.
So he lost the election to. He was just a little background on Nixon for a second. Eisenhower's vice president.
Right.
Ran for the office and lost to JFK. Right. And then now JFK is no longer in the picture. LBJ says he's going to be not seeking another term here.
Right.
So now Nixon's just like, I guess I got another shot at this thing.
Right. So
I like that old time rock and roll.
enter Tricky Dick in there, and he runs on the whole thing that he's going to get us out of Vietnam. He's going to downscale this, and we're pulling out. And again, you have to realize this is at the same time period that there's student unrest, there's riots.
Any particular riots, Larry?
Yeah, well, they shot. 5 students in Kent State are shot by the National Guard. The National Guard was called in to put down this protest, and 5 students are killed. 3 days later, there's another loserception that we've already covered, which was the Hat Riots in New York City, where there's the silent majority. That's a term that Nixon coined, that although there's a lot of protests and there's a lot of unrest going on, and it's very vocal and it's in the media, Nixon is trying to convince people, but the vast majority of people are just the silent majority. They're not saying anything negative against their government or against their country, and I think that's where we're doing the right thing by trying to beat back the communists at any cost in Vietnam. So, you talk about polarized types of things that one half of the country wants they get out of Vietnam, the other half is saying stay the course. The Tet Offensive is a clear indicator that this is not going to be a winnable thing. Nixon runs on the promise that he's going to remove the troops from Vietnam, that we're going to scale back and we're going to get out of there. It's definitely turbulent times, and with all of that, I mean, he's making promises in public promises, and at the same time, now we're finding out that Nixon had ordered a policy where they're now going to invade into Cambodia, and I mean that just created a huge
part of the reason being because they were also the NVA was also operating up in Cambodia, so it was a territory. It wasn't like lines on a map where it's New York, New Jersey, and that's there for. So it's you're trying to fight with some sense of restraint a war that has no restraint. So it's extremely difficult here.
Yeah, one side is trying to fight the war with their hand tied behind the back, which would be the United States, that they're going to respect borders and that type of thing. Meanwhile, the North Vietnamese, the communists, are supplying their troops in South Vietnam by going through Cambodia on something that was called the Ho Chi Minh Trail, which was a major supply line So
Yeah, worst marathon I ever ran, let me tell you.
So Nixon decides that he's secretly going to go into Cambodia and try to cut off their supply line. So he's on one side of his mouth he's saying one thing, and then on the other side of the mouth he's ordering, for us to go to broaden the whole thing by going into Cambodia.
It's almost like he's a politician, dude.
Yeah, it's not like, well, when have you ever known a politician to tell a lie? I mean, come on.
They lie?
Well, there's one important thing here, too, because, obviously there's a lot going on. Nixon kind of needs a PR win for what's going on with the war at this time. And there's definitely a lot of crazy things going on over here. But, again, one of those things where you got, John Kerry is a war hero on paper, who was then throwing his medals away at a peace rally. John McCain is actually a prisoner of war that's being kept in a certain now, here's the thing that can galvanize everybody. American boys are being held overseas, right? The guys who got either were already in the military and got sent in to serve, a lot of pilots that got shot down, then a lot of poor guys that got, brought into the military maybe because they had no other options, right? This was not a groundswell volunteer force. This was a draft army, right? Now they're being kept in some
very unpopular draft army.
Yeah. Super unpopular draft, and it's to the point now too where public opinion is very mixed on the war. You've told me some personal stories that you hear a lot of people try to deny and stuff like that, but I do want to get into the meat and bones of the story here. Mm-hmm. Now I have to ask you about one specific thing. We're talking about POW, again, standing for prisoner of war. As of 1970, there are at least 450 confirmed prisoners of war being held by the NVA. NVA being the North Vietnamese Army.
There you go.
Right. It's by the way, when you watch Operation Dumbo Drop, you keep thinking they're talking about Michael Jordan and the boys. We got the NBA's on its way in here. Oh shit, Barkley's coming. MIA meaning missing in action. Those numbers are said to have nearly doubled that. So if you got 450 confirmed, that means you could have close to about 1,000 guys that you have no clue what's going on with them, because the NVA is not exactly great about coming to the table politically to announce, hey, here's the people that we have captured, blah, blah, blah. So,
yeah, that was a major thing that although we're trying to fight a normal war, if you will, like a World War II war.
A civilized war.
Right, like we know who the good guys are. We know who the bad guys are. In Vietnam, you had no clue, because that same guy that you're meeting in the street during the daytime could very well be a communist sympathizer at night and come up and slit your throat, kind of a thing. So it's difficult, and the North Vietnam is not letting America know who exactly do they have in their prisons. So we have no clue. That was like a bargaining chip that they were using. They're playing a hard line here, that they're not playing by the rules, if you will. Although they did sign Geneva Convention rules of war. They're not paying any attention to that.
Yeah, so that's the sickest part, when a room full of lawyers decides how to have a proper war.
Right.
The oxymoron of a civilized war being that akin to a jumbo shrimp.
Rules of engagement, right?
Now, I want to set you up for success here, Lawrence Patrick.
Yeah.
There's a infamous prison that, again, a former an American hero, I'm going to call him. I never had a problem with him. I admired the guy. I found a lot of consistency to him. John McCain he gets shot down. Now, there's also a little side story with him where, because his father was a higher up in the military, that they were going to exchange a prisoner exchange would have gone down for him. But when he realized they weren't going to let the other guys out, it was going to be just him, McCain actually turned it down and stayed in captivity over there. So if you want to,
really,
next time they want to contrast him unfavorably against any other presidents, you just kind of have to remind yourself that in the moments of truth, integrity will prevail on that kind of a thing.
Right.
Now, he's staying in a very infamous camp, Dad, known as the Hanoi Hilton. I believe that might be a sarcastic term.
Yeah, that was definitely, it wasn't the Ritz. Although, from what I've been reading lately, the current Vietnamese government would like to portray that as it really wasn't all that bad. But Hanoi prison,
kind of like the Turks saying, like, "Hey, there's no genocide in Armenia. What are you talking about? It never happened."
Right. It was a war. It was just the war was going on. We had no control. But anyhow, This prison is an infamous prison that was actually built by the French back in the French colony days. And the French would throw their various political prisoners in there. It was in English, it would be called the Central House, Maison Centrale, which was still a designation of the location in Hanoi, North Vietnam now, the communist North Vietnam in their French Quarter, or what was the French Quarter. It was intended to hold Vietnamese prisoners, especially political prisoners, those who were agitating for independence, and it was a torture chamber. I mean, people were executed, people were tortured by the French, primarily Vietnamese prisoners.
I do want to give just a 2-second diversion here. I am so impressed with you right now that the listeners at home, for him to hit with the correct inflections, tones, accent, pronunciation of a French term for a shop teacher from Bergen County, New Jersey. Lawrence Patrick, I'm impressed.
Oh,
if I could add canned laughter to this, or canned applause, I would.
There you go.
I would totally do
All
it.
right.
You got it. Keep breaking this down here.
So this particular prison, the French expanded, and it goes from a capacity of like 460 to 600. But by any given day, really by 1954, and again, 54 was a famous date because that's when there was a major battle of the Vietnamese against their French colonialists.
And this is the same camp that McCain was still in at the time?
Yeah, this would later be housing American prisoners of war.
Wow.
But by 54, now there's like 2,000 people in this prison in subhuman conditions, and it just heaped tremendous amount of bitterness of the Vietnamese people against their French colonialists. Following the defeat in Dien Bien Phu, there's a Geneva Accord, and the North Vietnam became known as the Democratic Republic of Vietnam, but it was the Communist Democratic Republic of Vietnam.
It was like Hydra, just kind of like sneakily there in the shadows.
Right.
You think you're free, but hell, Hydra.
Now, during the Vietnam War, which quickly followed, because again, now 54, that was Eisenhower, followed by Kennedy, who further escalated it, followed by Johnson, who really escalated things. And now we've got Dick Nixon in office. But during the Vietnam War, actually the first prisoner to be sent to this prison, which the American prisoners were the ones that nicknamed it the Hanoi Hilton. And it was absolutely brutal to be in there. You were tortured. You were beaten daily. You were put in solitary confinement, which was probably
that's worse than
that's like the really bad. And early on in the war with the United States, the Vietnamese had a number of these different prisons, but the Hanoi Hilton was the most famous. The first prisoner that was sent there was actually in 1964, and they didn't get out of there until 73. So, I mean, you're talking a long, some of these guys were in captivity for long periods of time. It wasn't like World War II where you might have been a POW for 4 years at worst. These guys were suffering, and they were tortured, they were beaten, malnourished, no medical treatment.
Well, starvation was also used as a weapon because conditions were starting to get back stateside, and that's where the popular opinion was. Well, what we got to do something. These are our neighbors. These are our sons. These are our brothers. These are our nephews, our cousins, our schoolmates. These are the people that are stuck over here and are now suffering.
Right.
So something's got to be done over here.
That's where the whole MIA flag really got its genesis, was right in this time period, that people were definitely concerned. First off, you didn't know who was just missing in action, who was dead, who was missing in action, or who was a POW. You had no idea because the North Vietnamese were not giving away that information. Severe torture methods were done with rope, with bindings. McCain, when he was shot down, now McCain was a pilot, He's shot down. He lands in the lake. Now, he lands right near the Hanoi Hilton, right near that prison camp. Lands in a lake. The locals are taking him out of the water and beating the shit out of him. He had.
I think it's safe to say he doesn't interact with Paris Hilton.
No, he does not. There's no interaction there.
You're safer at the prison.
Check this out. I pulled this photo up off the Wikipedia page. This is John McCain's flight suit and parachute.
Yeah, John McCain came out later to say there's no friggin' way because they cut that off of him as soon as he landed.
Really?
Yeah, so that's all propaganda bullshit that's now in the Hanoi prison museum, if you will.
It's a museum now?
Yeah, and actually the main part of the prison has now turned into a luxury hotel, and there's a small.
Are you serious?
There's a small little museum, if you will, that kind of whitewashes the whole thing.
In keeping with the starvation tactics, though, no continental breakfast.
No.
No, not even continental, not even hot waffles in the morning.
Yeah, the waffle makers for your hand.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different clips that John McCain, when he would wave to you. I mean, afterwards, after the war is over and he comes home and he becomes a United States senator, there's film clips of him waving that his arm is not like above his shoulder because he couldn't raise his arm above his shoulder from the torture that he underwent while in captivity. Initially, they were just kind of beating the crap out of him, and then they realized that, hey, wait a minute, this guy is the son of Admiral McCain, a hierarchy in the United States Navy. So they thought they were going to use him as a bargaining chip or a propaganda ploy. And Kevin, you're exactly right that when they offered to free him with the idea that they were going to use him as a propaganda thing, they said, well, you see, the Americans, they take care of the rich people's sons, but they're not taking care of the grunts on the ground. And that's where John McCain, said no, he's not going to offer accept that offer of his freedom simply because of his father's admiralty rank. But anyhow, yeah, that was.
We got to hit the mission here in a second.
Yeah, that's a real bad place. And finally, United States intelligence gets word that not at the Hanoi Hilton, which was probably the most infamous of all the POW camps, but a smaller camp about 23 miles outside of Hanoi. Hanoi is the capital of North Vietnam. Just so you're 23 miles outside of the capital, there's a smaller prisoner of war camp, but it's pretty much isolated. So it sparks the attention of intelligence back home in the United States here that maybe somehow or other we can figure out a way of getting in there and getting some of those guys out of there. And this wouldn't be the first time that we've had a rescue mission to a prisoner of war camp. So it's worked in the past. Maybe we can pull this off. And Son Tay as the prisoner of war camp. Son Tay.
I tried to tell you, pronounce it like Thai food. That's
Thai
what it was.
food, all right.
We got to be careful, too, because, again, we don't want to get another one of those. We got a 3-star review with a written complaint just saying disappointed over on our iTunes.
I saw that. I call BS.
Episode. Well, it was funny because the guy just wrote, he goes, these guys talk about military history for 30 minutes, then 2 minutes about the first tour in Vietnam. Had to turn it off because I realized I wasn't going to hear anything insightful. Hey, you cheap fuck, go buy a book about Demo Dick. Right? I got to fill an hour here and talk about the guy's entire life. I'm very sorry that I skipped over that one part here. So, maybe a shop teacher and a shitty fucking plumber shouldn't be the guys giving you your education. Go buy a book, you cheap fuck.
Go to the library.
Yeah. I hope you're listening to this show. We will win you back. Keep listening, all right? We got some good stuff going.
Because even though we're mad at you, we love you.
That's exactly. LP, did you have anything else you want to say? Because we got to introduce the mission, baby.
That's set up that we've now know of this one camp, and it goes before the hierarchy of the military, and said, yeah, maybe we ought to try to develop a plan that we can go in there and rescue some of these guys.
Well, I'm excited about this one. And by the way, this particular missing in action rescue mission does not involve Chuck Norris. as the 80s movies would have.
We
you
got
think.
somebody better than that.
A little bit better than Chuck Norris. I'm going to agree with you on that one here. So we're about to dive into the raids here, but
should I cue up the military drum march music? Dun, 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 dun. I got you, man.
Well, it's interesting, man. And I do want to say real quickly, too, we joked about that guy leaving a bad review. But if you guys like the show, leave us a written review that's positive, man, because we
won't call you out all the time. It's just this one was stupid.
Yeah, it was an interesting one here. So the other guy who said we were all over the place topic-wise, I was like, yeah, he's actually right.
He's right. But in a good way, I would say.
I think so, too. And that's why so we've set the zeitgeist. Lawrence Patrick Burke has given us the zeitgeist here. And unfortunately, at the 39-minute mark, we're about to dive into
that
the
all
raids.
39 minutes what it all means.
I'm teasing, man. But that is why we have now set up the zeitgeist here. Everything's good to go, which is why on the 21st of November, 1970, the United States would launch a daring mission/raid to rescue some of the boys in one of those camps. It was going to take a joint effort by multiple branches, some balls of steel, some of the very best special warfare operators that the military ever had to have. This is essentially as close to G.I. Joe as we're ever going to get. Buddy.
I was going to say the music was scored by Isaac Hayes. It's going to be that great.
I'm just talking about the Son Tay Raiders, baby. So, no mission works without good intel, however. And you can't liberate guys you can't find, Dad. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it's really hard to play Marco Polo with with guys you're trying to rescue.
Enter the United States Air Force, who we tease. I'm a Navy veteran, as everybody always knows on the show. I like to play that up because hopefully History Channel will pick up this goddamn show.
Call us.
We like to, well, they have something of ours on their desk. We like to nickname them the Chair Force, but they're not. They're heavily involved in this mission. They do some badass stuff here. May of 1970, a surveillance plane, model SR-71. That's right, that band that everybody knows, SR-71. Yeah, that's them. Right Now is the song by SR-71. If you wanted to listen to that at home here, guys. But yeah, they're not just. It wasn't a clever name. It was the name of a surveillance plane, and. This plane is flying overhead over an area near Hanoi that is suspected of being a POW camp. We've had suspicions of this being a camp since 1968. Dad, when was the Tet Offensive?
68.
Yep. So we've been thinking about this for a while here. The plane is able to safely photograph the camp from an altitude of 80,000 feet. Okay, which is super important because anti-aircraft guns and some of the SAM missiles, things that are going to come into play later, are not exactly able to, detect this plane. Radar might not even be able to detect the plane at this height. So this is American technology at its very best. This is the Air Force doing a hell of a job bringing this in here. So analysis of the photos concluded that there are at least 55 POWs in this camp, with at least 6 that are in need of immediate assistance. The Pentagon would spring into action. Unfortunately, government rolls things out very slowly, okay, as we're going to find out. But this becomes almost a good thing in certain ways, and certainly the egg on the face at the very end is also because of the slow to respond action here. But task force are going to get put into play. They're going to start studying the territory. They need to know, in order to have this action, the American military knows that they have the correct location of a camp near Son Tay, okay, outside of Hanoi. The only kicker, all right, because we do have this isolated thing, like you said, Dad, but here's the kicker. The compound is pretty well guarded, all right, and was near thick air defenses of Hanoi, right, because you're going to guard your capital against them.
We've been bombing Hanoi, so you got a lot of anti-aircraft and SAM missile sites surrounding
the
Hanoi.
U.S. runs the sea. The U.S. owns the air, right? There are some Vietnamese fighter planes, but very, very few and far between. Definitely not on the scale that the United States has, but your anti-aircraft guns are going to be important because you need Jane Fonda to be able to pose with them before she puts out her jazzercise stuff. Now, don't get me wrong, young Jane Fonda, I would hear her out. But anyway, but that's the kicker. Now, not only that, you have the anti-aircraft guns. You're right near the capital over in Vietnam. Just 5 miles away is a group of 12,000 well-armed North Vietnamese troops. The scale of this raid is going to have to be, to borrow a term from Kennedy, surgical. Kennedy was a genius because Kennedy understood the value, and this is why the special warfare community still honors him to this day. Sometimes you need a scalpel and not a sledgehammer, right? So that's what's going to happen over here. The scale of the raid needs to be surgical in order to avoid a massive conflict in such an NVA stronghold. And this is where they're going to form a study group, Kahuna, like a study group. When you get together with your friends after class and you work on, we're going to make sure we all pass this test together, except this particular test is in order to devise the plan to get these prisoners of war out of this camp and home without getting the people going in killed as well.
It's just like high school.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like high school, man. It really is. The study group concludes, though, that there is a way to pull this off, and they also identify, upon further review of the surveillance photos from the Air Force, we are now estimating that we can rescue 61 prisoners of war. So if this raid is going to work, we're going to need someone to lead the boots on the ground in an effective manner. Enter. Oh, man. This guy, the hairs are raising on my arm here.
Before you reveal this name, I do have a question, though. So when planning these type of operations, like the thought goes into it, because how many prisoners of war were there, and then versus how many they rescued?
They weren't sure exactly how many were there, but there was estimates between 55 to 70. Somewhere in that range is what this camp is now holding.
So it was just like as many as we possibly can, kind of a deal?
We have a confirmed concentration of these guys that we know we can get in. That this is real intel. Everything else is speculative.
Yeah, and all this
that's a
intel,
good question, though.
All this intel that's going on too. It's kind of like we have to figure these things out, but we can't be telling a whole lot of people what it is we're trying to figure out. So
no, of course. My only issue is I was just questioning. It was like, what if doesn't that put the safety of the people outside the majority in jeopardy as well, because they're rescuing just this one core group that's prisoned? You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's an interesting theory here, because as we cover the raid, towards the aftermath of the raid, we kind of answer that question. So I'm going to put a pin in that just for right now, because you raise a very good point. If we are now rescuing these guys, is that going to endanger the other prisoners, or is that going to embolden the military to think we can start making more raids?
Yeah.
So the problem is you got to have the first mission be a success before you can figure out what to do over here. So now you need a guy who knows what the hell he's doing. Enter goddamn American hero, Colonel Arthur Bull Simons, known as Bull Simons. All right.
Does he have a handlebar mustache that's actually dope? Like it sounds like that.
Pull up a picture of him if you can, and anyone who can see a photo of him, and I will include it on the Instagram. This man looks like he was carved from granite. Okay. Now, interesting stuff. It's Bull Simons is what you want to search for. Bull Simons. It'll pop right up.
Yeah, he's a cigar chewing.
Oh, damn.
Pistol packing.
That is literally what anyone will picture when you think of the military. That's what you see.
The reason he never made general, by the way, they said, was because he was so just pretty much by the numbers that it was, well, let's do what's best for the boys on the ground. There was no politics to him. This is a fucking soldier. All right. Now, first of all, a couple little things here. Simons comes from a Jewish background too. Okay, so he's got then he winds up living out in Missouri for a little while, but he's born in New York City. Bull was the nickname that he got because in the Bull Pit, where they used to, it was kind of a training exercise to kind of wrestle and see who'd be the last man standing, and the bull could handle himself. All right, it was very, very easy to figure that out. So anyway, interesting little side note here. Bull Simons, he's also a World War II hero, a decorated Silver Star recipient. He had participated in the raid that helped free survivors of the Bataan Death March and had already, like I said, honored with the Silver Star. He saw action in the Pacific in World War II. So just for the time frame here then, guys. But wait, if this mission is taking place in 1970, Dad, and it's being led by Bull Simons, who fought in World War II, what age does that put him at?
He's somewhere around 52 or so.
He is 52 years old when he's going to be. And by the way, at age 52, Bull Simons is still doing 250 push-ups a day and having people scared shitless of the idea of having to fight him. All right? The men love him. By the way, I swear to God, this is the thing. He showed up as an officer. He was a lieutenant.
I've got a great casting couch.
That's who I want you to cast on this one.
I got
Perfect.
a great casting couch.
So here's the best part is that what he does is that in World War II, his sergeants actually thought that he was a mute. They thought he couldn't speak because he never spoke because he wanted to learn from the sergeants. So that's a special kind of officer when you get there and you say, well, I understand what as an officer I'm supposed to be doing because I'm a commissioned officer here and I'm in charge, but I want to learn from the enlisted guys because they know the boots on the ground stuff. So it's like you show up and your dad owns the construction company. So do you want to just sit there and be the supervisor, or do you want to go mix it up with the guys who are telling you like, hey, here's how you do some framing work. Here's how you do this. They say he did not talk much. He was a mission-oriented guy. And at age 52, he must be slowing down, right? Nope. He is still considered a total badass by his men and has the absolute respect of his own superiors. The bull is so respected by the brass, in fact, that he was allowed to have his choice of men for this mission. He selected his crew of raiders from a group of over 500 volunteers, all from Special Forces unit out of Fort Bragg, North Carolina. You know, the Green Berets.
Right.
So Green Berets, they're not getting told a whole lot about the mission. They're being kept in the dark mostly. But there's the idea, the appeal that, oh, by the way, you're going to be serving under Bull Simons. And these guys are like, let's fucking do it.
If Bull's involved, I want to be involved too. And
this dude is actual Nick Fury.
all they were really doing is just putting up flyers around Fort Bragg, saying that there's a mission that's going to be led by the Bull, and it's a moderately dangerous mission. So there was no, hey, we're going to go in and rescue prisoners of war. There was none of that. They weren't tipping their hat as to what the mission was going to entail. Just saying it was going to be moderately dangerous. It was going to be a training mission, and you'll probably be home by Christmas, but there's no extra
additional pay.
No additional pay.
And you have to volunteer.
And you have to volunteer for this.
And the key you said too, Dad, was that, because I mentioned this to you when I deployed overseas, that one of the things they do is they make you stop at legal and fill out a will, but that's when you're going overseas, so that if something happens to you, you have your legal affairs here. Now, they had to fill out their wills when for these guys?
Before they even signed up for the training.
Yeah, that's when you know some shit's going to get in. There's, hey, Bull Simons, the biggest badass we got, is involved. We can't tell you a whole lot about it, and you have to sign it's volunteer, no extra money. Home by Christmas, that's nice, right?
Can't tell anybody what you're doing. I mean, it was in complete secrecy, and because of the respect that everybody had for Bull Simons, that he had over 500 volunteers in the home of the Green Beret. I mean, Fort Bragg.
Yeah.
That's their home base. That he had 500 volunteers to select from, and they then started to whittle that down through interviews and that type of a thing. That and Bull was involved directly with some of those interviews to find out exactly what you're made of and what your attitude is.
I want to ask one of these days a friend of the show, a friend of mine too, actually, and a fellow comic as well, James Mack, Army veteran. I'd be curious how much Bull Simons gets remembered in modern Army history, because he definitely, I believe he had spent some time over at Fort Bragg, I think. So the first phase of the mission had been called Polar Circle. That was where they were collecting all the intel, doing the study groups, trying to build maps of what the camp would look like, which comes into play, right? But that phase of the mission is complete. The second phase is known as Operation Ivory Coast. That's about to get underway. The training ground chosen was Eglin Air Force Base in Florida, as one of the larger bases in the country, and also Florida weather having heat similar to what the jungles in Vietnam might provide. So you don't want to go train for the jungle warfare over in Kansas. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Right.
So let's get a little humidity. Let's get some crotch rot going on. The base also, one of the largest bases stateside in the United States, which is great because that means that there's little patches of earth that, Dad, you and I have walked around Fort A.P. Hill a couple of times down in Virginia.
Right.
There's some spots to go get lost around there if you wanted nobody to be paying attention to you. Eglin Air Force Base, also perfect because now this absolute secret mission can be trained in privacy, and these boys can have a sense of isolation from anybody else. So it's not almost like you don't really know what's going on over there.
Yeah. So I mean, once Bull has these 500 volunteers, it's going to be further whittled down to like 100 and some that are going to be involved in this training phase. They're going off to a secret location on base. They start to set up mock village, not village, but a compound that they're actually going to be flying into. But none of these guys really know what exactly is going to happen with this mission. They haven't been told yet that, hey, we're going to go in and rescue some POWs, but they are getting a sense of what this is going to be all about as they're going through this various training. And the training was something extra special too. Well, and you not only had Florida, but you also had going into Georgia and the surrounding states flying these various missions, because again, this has to be dovetailed. These are Army Rangers, Green Berets for the most part, that has to dovetail now with the Air Force as well, because they're going to have to be flown into this POW camp.
Now, the Marines were apparently pissed off that they weren't allowed to be a part of the operation. That's a true story, because everybody knows the Marines want to fight, but unfortunately a lot of reading was required for this mission, so we couldn't use them. I'm just teasing. All my Marine buddies out there know that.
Wow,
you
just put the hackles up.
No, I'm teasing, man. But
but what was interesting too, I got to throw this in there too. This whole thing was being overseen by the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So there's nobody higher than the Joint Chiefs of Staff that are running this deal. So this is directly in their control. And one of the things that I had found in the research of this is that the Marines were a little too much closed shop, that they wanted this. They needed this overlap kind of a thing, and they was afraid there was going to be partisanship within the various military branches, that if they involved too many others.
Super important factor you're saying too here. Now, another thing is that in the selection, because the Air Force is going to work in conjunction with the Army for this operation, and in many aspects there's crew selection. So the same way that Bull Simons is getting to pick his boys for the raiding party, you're now handpicking pilots who are then handpicking their crews. And it's an interesting thing, because ranks are not necessarily going to be a deciding factor. Rank kind of gets thrown by the wayside. Hey, this is my mission, I'm running it, but I want this guy because he's great here. Experience is going to be key, especially if you fought in Southeast Asia at this point. This was not a chance for you to show up and try to make a career for yourself. This wasn't, because again, that's the thing. That's why Bull Simons never rises above the rank of colonel, because in order to get to generalship, there's a lot of politicking and bullshitting and ass kissing that has to go on. You got to eat a lot.
Like, nah.
Well, Bull Simons was just like, well, that doesn't interest me. This is what I want to do right here.
Yeah, who's going to be able to complete the mission?
Exactly.
That was the key.
We got to get the boys out of the jungle. That's the bottom line here. So
this man has no right being on this podcast. I'm sorry.
Well, again, we're throwing him there's a huge curveball at the very end of this that's going to make some sense for you. There will be 103 special operators from the Army that get selected for this mission. There will be 116 members of the Air Force that will provide air support, the ride itself, the extract itself, which is the most crucial part of the mission, and also the cover for the boys on the ground. This is no football game. This is one team, one fight, and the 219 members of this raid would operate under the name JCTG, aka Joint Contingency Task Group. So some pretty cool hardware getting involved here, by the way. Like, you're going to have helicopters that are going to have to move the troops in. The helicopters are also going to be armed so that they can provide ground support and fire like that. Also, you're going to bring some planes in, some pretty badass fucking planes. The A-1 Sky Raiders are going to be taking control of the skies for this mission, if you will. And by the way, side note, the most concerning part of searching for an A-1 Sky Raider on Google, Dad, is that when you search it, the search bar automatically fills out "for sale in my area." So if you're looking for a A1 Sky Raider on the Jersey Shore Craigslist, I think we're in some deep shit. But the men are going to train very diligently for this mission. By the way, as you said, Dad, CIA intelligence and then also military intelligence, they combine, they build this mock setup for where they are going to land their training on this thing based off of the topography and then the surveillance photos. They're trying to recreate this thing so that they can operate almost perfectly, you know what I mean, for this mission. And by the way, the little model that they made, they nicknamed the model Barbara. So it was an interesting thing there. So you wonder if Barbara Eden was...
Barbara was actually a secretary with the CIA people who were building this model mock-up. So they kind of nicknamed the model Barbara.
Interesting.
Little tidbit of side note.
Well, the men are training very diligently for the mission, but they're not exactly sure what the mission is or where it's going to be. Again, the promise is simple. Home for Christmas, but it's hazardous training, and make out your will beforehand because there's no additional pay.
I have a question for you, KP.
Hit me.
for this training montage, what are you thinking in your head? Is it like Mulan, I'll make a man out of you, or is it kind of like Rocky, like training type of thing? Like, what in your head is like the ultimate training music for these guys?
I'll tell you what, I got a good one for you. I think it's Jesus Walks, fitting from the Jarhead trailer, from Kanye West. So that this is the boys are coming, man.
Oh man.
This
movie's going to be great.
Of the 103 that were selected from the Army side, there was only 4 who did not have previous combat experience.
Good point.
But
Good point.
Those 4 had a set of special skills that were going to be used on
so that's
this
where
mission.
Liam Neeson served.
Yeah, and at this particular point in time, too, that they're told that this training, this mission that they're training for, is probably got about a 50-50 survival rate. So they knew going in that there's going to be a shitstorm, but they're still going in anyhow.
It is now that there's a song that we'll play in later that I think is absolutely perfect, because as a kid I remember standing up and cheering in my living room anytime it came on. So I'll remind you of that in a second, Kuna, because I think you'll appreciate the reference. But boots on the ground portion, all right, so our Raiders on the ground, the boys under Bull Simons, they are training constantly for this mission. Over 170 sessions and simulations, sometimes multiple times a day they would run this mission. The air side of the house, where our boys who are going to be flying the aircraft, they log in over 10,050 flying hours are executed in preparation for this. So,
yeah. Over 1,000 hours are flown without incident. I mean, the training was unbelievable. A lot of firsts in this training as well. Like you said, it was over 170 rehearsals that they had on this, but 80% of those rehearsals are at night. So they're flying at night.
Well, the raid is going to happen at night.
Because the raid is going to happen at night. Yeah. Another little interesting tidbit that I found is that all these training rehearsals, all these training sessions that they had, they're training with live fire. Whoa. So when they're going in, the bullets are flying. So you better make sure you know where you're at and where your buddies are at, and you're not walking into the line of fire.
When training in that type of situation, well, at least with live rounds, how does that even work? I'm
very, very carefully.
Yeah, no, but I'm also like, are they in that situation, are they just kind of fighting each other? Like, they're like, okay, you guys are going to be the bad guys. I know it's kind of silly to ask, but
no, it's not, because this is similar to some stuff I did down at Cape Canaveral with I can't exactly give away, but certain things. We used to have BFAs, and we would shoot blanks at each other. Now, these guys using live fire, that's very interesting, because that could just be targets. Now, one thing I do want to throw to you for real quick, Dad, before we jump into the windows of the mission and the politics behind it.
All right.
These fellers, they're going to be operating at night here. So what's going to be a way in order for them to have greater accuracy when attempting to fire? There's a reason you don't go hunting at night, okay? When you go hunting for...
Can't see anything.
Yeah. So what are these boys going to do to try to mitigate that?
Yeah, well, there's... a lot of us now see the images of the raid with bin Laden and that kind of stuff, and these guys are flipping down the goggles in front of them, and they have these night vision goggles. Well, at this particular point in time, we didn't have that technology. There were no night vision goggles. But in the early training sessions, they were finding that shooting with live round trainings, that their accuracy was not all that swift. So, what does Bull and the rest of the boys do is they start reading some of these sporting magazines, and they realize that there's a scope, a laser scope that they can mount onto their Army-issue weapons. So it's a mail-order scope. And that was one of the things. These guys were given carte blanche, so they could go out and buy anything. The same type of thing that came to my mind was with Marchenko, that he got ousted because of that. And this was an entirely different situation here, that they were buying whatever they needed for this mission. And they went out and bought these laser scopes. And it was the first time that a laser scope was ever used. The night vision goggles, well, they didn't have that yet. But they did know that the Air Force was going, at the time of the raid, that the Air Force was going to be dropping flares from high above, so that they were going to light up the night sky, if you will, to give them some visual. But if you're looking up into a white-hot phosphorus flare, you're gonna be blinded by the intense white light. So what did they do?
Similar to a flashbang getting thrown into a room.
Right. That you're going to be blinded for the next couple of minutes until your eyes adjust to the light again. So they're issued World War II ski goggles. And what did they have? They had clear lenses or they had amber lenses. And they found that wearing the amber lenses were better because with that phosphorus flare or whatever flares they were using, you'd still have better vision at night wearing these amber-colored glasses.
I should have brought my my shooting glasses, my orange aviators.
Same kind of an idea. So, we're in a 1970s war fighting with World War II, 1945 at best equipment. But
you're dressed like Janis Joplin now.
It's the best you got. It's the best you got. So that's what you're going with.
Which is awesome. Now, there's 2 windows for the operation that get chosen. One window holds for the end of October, the other for the end of November.
Yeah, now that window, that's important too because they knew they were going in at night, and they had to go in a dry season, so it's not going to be, the monsoon in Vietnam that they're going to have to go in.
Foreshadowing, a little flooding going on, perhaps.
They had to go in either in October or in November, but more specifically when there was a quarter moon. So there was like a 7 to 10 day period in October and a 7 to 10 day period in November where they would have a quarter moon. So as they're flying in, because they're flying in without lights and they're flying in without radio communication. Again, this is as stealthy as you could possibly make it, but you still want to be able to see your other aircraft, who your buddies are and where they are. And that was a huge problem to be solved too for the Air Force, because now your lead in is with a C-130 that they have to fly so slow that they're virtually near their stall speed. So they're flying in very slow with like 70% flaps, and then
if you guys want to repeat that, you can. I'll edit that part out. Let me just write that down for you. I'm so sorry.
You know what? We're going to roll with it, man. That's the beauty of Eatontown, New Jersey,
there
right?
You go.
That
things are happening here too.
It is what it is.
But the helicopters that are following with the guys, they're going as fast as they possibly can, but they can't keep up with the C-130. So they're actually flying in the draft of the C-130 at a like they're flying in like a V formation.
So it's Talladega Nights, shake and bake.
So, right. There you go. And they have to at night without communication to one another, without any kind of lights on. So again, they're flying stealthy, and they have this quarter moon illuminating the night sky so that they can at least visibly see one another and stay in visible contact with one another.
So those are the 2 windows here. Now the problem is that they are about a month apart. So a lot can happen in a month. Due to President Nixon not being available for an in-person briefing at this time, National Security Advisor and all-around a curiosity of a human being, Henry Kissinger, delays the mission until the November timeframe. While the delay does allow for more training and the acquisition of more equipment, it would also, a little foreshadowing here for the listeners at home, doom the mission to what's considered somewhat failure. Kahuna's trying to figure out why we're talking about this on a show called American Loser. Well,
how bad is the blunder?
Little foreshadowing here. A little foreshadowing.
Yeah. And interesting note too is that Nixon gave the green light to this whole mission when it was first brought to him. But one of the little tidbits is he wanted to have these prisoners of war freed and back home so that they can celebrate Thanksgiving. So he's trying to make a little media plug for himself, because Nixon at this point is not a real popular guy with a lot of Americans. So
imagine that though. You finally get freed from the torture of a Vietnamese prison, and you get home just in time to watch the Detroit Lions on football. So your ground raiders are going to consist of 3 groups. This is where the meat and potatoes of the story is here, guys. We're taking our time with this one because we want to be accurate. All right. So first team, if you want, I'm going to refer to them as teams, which is Blue Boy. All right. Blue Boy will intentionally crash land. That is right, folks. Intentionally crash land into the compound itself to further the element of surprise and cut down on NVA reaction times. Blue Boy will have 14 members. Then there's Team Greenleaf. Greenleaf will have 22 members. They will land properly and provide immediate support of Blue Boy. That's their mission. Greenleaf is supposed to support Blue Boy. That becomes huge. Finally, Team Red Wine, as in UB40, red wine make you feel so fine, would land with a team of 20 in order to protect the operation from outside interference from the NVA and ensure your outer perimeter. So you got 3 layers here. You got the boys going in, boom, crash landing in. We're going in to get the prisoners. Support is going to be around us at all times for anything we missed on the way in. And then we're setting up the outside for anybody that's coming into our circle here. This is a tactical, brilliant move here. So, and the Raiders, by the way, are armed to the teeth. Many carried the commando-style CAR-15, which is kind of the modern M4. M16s are going to be carried by a couple of the guys, which is essentially the difference between an M4 and an M16, just for anybody who wants to know, is just the length of there's a collapsible stock on an M4. Otherwise, typically they're relatively the same length for the most part. I've never got a chance to shoot an M16. I had an M4. Now, M60s are also going to be brought in here. M60s, that is your a man carrying a machine gun that it's belt-fed. That's your Rambo gun right there, okay? Grenade launchers. So that's going to be pretty badass right there. You got boys carrying their own grenade launchers. Each man is also, most of them are carrying their own sidearms as well. They're also carrying multiple grenades, and they also have radios here. While the direct roles only have 28 planes directly involved with the mission, 28 planes and helicopters, I should say, are involved in the overall mission. That's the direct support guys that are going to be involved that are considered a part of this whole task force. There's a larger aircraft ensemble at play, if you will, Dad, that is going to involve 116 aircrafts again. So now that's going to be 59 Navy planes, Navy aircraft, and 57 Air Force aircraft, which is going to add, if you're paying attention at home, another branch to the fray. Okay, and the Marines still not allowed in due to,
whatever.
But it's important to me to mention this part.
Yeah, I think, too, that before you hit that, I got to say that, when you say crash land, they intentionally crash landed that first helicopter, Blue Boy, right within the center of this compound because there was a guard tower that had to be taken out immediately. They had 1 minute in order to take out that guard tower because there was a fear that if they landed outside the compound and then tried to enter the compound, that the guards would then immediately kill all the prisoners. So they had to crash land that thing, capture this one guard tower that would have been in the line of fire and possibly injure the POWs that are in there. So the idea, they knew right from the get-go that they were going to crash land that first helicopter, and they had backup helicopters to take them out once the mission was complete.
Now, wait, was it like someone, like there was actually a bunch of people in that one helicopter that crashed? Or
yes,
was it like
it's a structured crash?
A strategic crash.
It's what they call a hard landing. So I mean, I think that's important to realize that these guys were willing to crash land their first helicopter just so that the time factor, again, they had 1 minute in order to capture this guard tower and overcome the rest of the guards in the compound before the guards had the opportunity to kill all the prisoners.
Now, in the reason we're mentioning all these additional aircraft is because, as you mentioned to me in our little meeting beforehand here, Dad, one of the largest, I believe the largest bombing campaign of the entire Vietnam War is about to take place in order to distract the Vietnamese from what's going on here. We're not going to pay attention to this little tiny party of guys going in here when the entire country is pretty much being bombed all at once.
Yeah, that's they had a diversion, and it was quite the diversion because they flew aircraft off of 3 different Navy carriers and I think 7 other Air Force bases. So they're going all around Hanoi. The whole sky is being lit up by this diversion, if you will, so that the North Vietnamese air traffic control is a little busy with what's going on all around them. And another layer that we really didn't mention here is that these guys who are leading this mission are flying actually out of Thailand, and they have to refuel the helicopter. They have to refuel underway because I believe it was like a 2.5 or 3.5 hour flight just to get to this POW camp in North Vietnam. So now they're refueling in air without lights and without, communication back and forth.
Which is impressive to see no matter what.
Yeah,
man.
by the light of the quarter moon.
Picture them going
shit.
in like when Bill Paxton and the Colonial Marines are going into Aliens here, just for the reference point. We're in a pop culture reference. We have to do. So the mission is a go. The time has arrived. Try not to let your blood run wild with Hulkamania when you hear this next part. 5 hours before takeoff, Bull Simons addresses his men. All right, these guys still don't know exactly what their mission is, but they know it's go time, right? And here's the quote from Bull Simons.
How does that work? How do you have a mission that's a go time but still don't technically know what's about to happen?
Well, you know what you have to do. You don't know why you're doing it.
Because they were told they're in Florida at Eglin. They're told, pack your shit because we're going. So get on board, and they're flying. They don't know where the frig they're going. The next thing they know, they are now landing in Thailand.
But do they know they're rescuing POWs?
No, they do not know that.
Wow.
They don't know that
So
yet.
it's kind of like you know that you're coming in here to record a podcast for us, but you don't know the topic usually until we start talking. So this is Bull Simon. This is Bull Simons revealing the topic. You ready? This is pretty goddamn good quote. We're going to rescue 70 POWs from a camp called Son Tay. This is something American prisoners have a right to expect from your fellow soldiers. The camp is located 23 miles west of Hanoi. It is said that the troops were quiet for a couple of minutes, and then essentially they just go, "Oh, fuck yeah." You know why? Because these are potentially your brothers in arms here that you're going to go out there. There's people who, there is one member of the crew who has a cousin that's a POW. Now you're getting excited. Now you're like, dude, we're getting our boys back. All right?
I feel like you're really hyping this up because I feel like something really, really bad is about to happen.
The show's called American Loser for a reason.
I know, but it's going to hurt.
Well, Simons puts a very interesting final instruction together for the boys. Another exact quote here. You are to let nothing interfere with the operation. We're here to rescue prisoners, not take prisoners. What does that mean? If they ain't ours, we're dropping them. All right.
Kick ass, chew bubble gum.
We
didn't bring bubble gum.
That's right.
If we walk into a trap, don't dream about walking out of Vietnam unless you got wings on your feet. It is 100 miles to Laos. I want to keep this force together. We will be back up the Songkhon River, and by Christ, which is hilarious because he's a Jewish guy, by Christ, let them come across the goddamn open ground. We'll make them pay for every foot across this son of a bitch. So the boys are, you pretty much... Here's the song. You ready? This is the song I mentioned earlier. Saving the Day from Ghostbusters.
Yeah, I was just going to guess it too.
What do you need from me? The assault force lands at 0219, a.k.a. 2:19 in the morning, a.k.a. last call even if you're friends with the bartender. All right, so our boys are about to go in here. The helicopter that was intended to crash land had thought the trees in the area to be about 40 feet tall based off of models that were drawn up on the aforementioned Barbara map and plan.
They were a little taller?
Yeah. So they were trained upon by the intel. They're significantly taller. I think it's about 150 feet.
What?
Which is not a big deal, actually. That's not a deal breaker here. But if you ever wanted to see a combat helicopter get used as a wood chipper, this was your chance. Literally just coming up, just chopping these trees down here. One of the few casualties of the entire mission is actually suffered around this time frame when a fire extinguisher, no, I'm not even kidding here, a fire extinguisher falls onto one of the copter's, the flight engineer's ankles. And one report was a sprained ankle, one report was a broken ankle. So I couldn't confirm on either one of that.
A hurt ankle.
But
so
yeah,
wait, that was the only casualty was a busted ankle?
Pretty much one of the only
crash.
casualties, right?
Was an ankle.
Yes. Now, these heavily armed raiders are on the ground now, and a message is broadcast via bullhorn, not by Bull Simons, but by another. Because keep in mind, remember the groups that are landing, and it's 3 teams that are landing here.
One more question for you. I'm so sorry.
No, hit me, dude.
Are there do we know who carried out this mission, or is that kind of lost to time?
No, they are all honored, and this is considered one of the. There's a lot of awards that are going to be coming down the chain.
Because I was going to say, for everyone I would like to talk to about what went down in this thing, I want to talk to the mad bastard who was like, "Yeah, I'll fly the helicopter that's going to crash into the plane, that's going to crash into the tower."
There's some cool lectures can be found on YouTube, and I believe there's actually a couple of video games made off of this very same mission.
No way.
Yeah, man, it's Well, once you hear about this, it
This
gets
is a level
even
in
crazier.
Fortnite I don't know about.
Well, over the bullhorn, the first team that lands, which is Blue Boy, they announce, "We're Americans. Keep your head down. We will be in your cell in minutes. We are Americans. Keep your head down. We will be in your cells in minutes." The guards of the facility get taken down quickly and effectively. The Green Berets do not fuck around, okay? Even those that are attempting to escape are getting shut down because there's no chance we're going to let you go warn the NVA of anything that's going on here. Bull Simon's men heard the message that he had issued earlier loud and clear: drop anything that isn't American. So Team Blue Boy begins methodically moving throughout the encampment in search of their comrades in arms. The support group, okay, the boys of Team Greenleaf, accidentally, because they're flying at night and not really sure of what's going on the ground over here, it's not a traditional flight, it's stealth on stealth on stealth, they accidentally land about 400 meters off course at a different place, which is known as the secondary school. Okay, so this is a different compound. And unfortunately, Dad, that secondary school is full of some people.
Yeah, it's full of bad guys. And while they land and they go after this this second compound, not knowing that they're in the wrong place. But it happens to be like an officer's school, an officer's training school. And it's later found out that it's probably full of 100 to 200 Chinese soldiers who were there as training officials or technical advisees to the North Vietnamese army.
Again, with censorship, Wikipedia goes, they just go, oh, hostile forces were found over there.
Hostile.
Anywhere else you read, they're like, yeah, Chinese military was in town running shit. But the Chinese were never involved in Vietnam.
Yeah.
So,
but there was 100 to 200 hostile soldiers estimated, and there was 100 to 200
casualties estimated.
Right, estimated kills.
So during an intense firefight, the boys at Greenleaf are definitely seeing some shit, man. They wind up, the Raiders take these boys out while suffering no casualties themselves, by the way. Very cool.
Right.
Team Redwine lands properly, using their helicopter miniguns to drop trees and guard towers. Any NVA attempting to react to the Raiders were quickly dispatched. Okay, so Team Redwine is at least in the right spot over here. Now, the boys of Greenleaf, they wind up getting, essentially, after their firefight. And this is the craziest part. I'm going to reveal the minutes on this thing in a second. This podcast is longer than the mission.
Yeah.
All right, that's pretty nuts to say. But one story, by the way, that I thought was worth mentioning, this came out of one of the Soldier of Fortune essays that I read about this, is that an NVA soldier, roused from his sleep, because keep in mind the attack is happening in the middle of the night, this NVA soldier is confused and then jumps into a trench during a gunfight and happens to find himself next to Bull Simons. So imagine turning and looking and seeing the face of Bull Simons as Bull Simons reaches in, pulls out his .357 revolver, and just Dirty Harry's the fuck out of you.
Good
All right?
morning.
Yeah. But so he drops that guy right there. You may be asking yourself, though, Kahuna, as you've been asking the entire episode, my friend, if we're kicking so much ass in this mission and the NVA are so completely caught off guard, how is this on a show called American Loser? So soon, now after all three teams have been in some sort of a successful firefight here and we're suffering no casualties, the mission's going pretty much, there's a couple things that could have gone very wrong but have not. Luck's been on our side here for a couple of things, and the planning is working for the most part. The communications that nobody wants to hear are soon echoed over the radio. Team Blue Boy announces negative items. Negative items means that after now Team Blue Boy has thoroughly searched the prison, they are unable to find any of the prisoners of war that they came to rescue. The mission was an absolute tactical success, but is considered a tangible failure because you are not bringing home any of the boys. All right?
Nobody was there.
The objective was not complete. Extraction is called for, and the entire raid, by the way, takes place in under a half hour.
27 minutes.
27 minutes.
They trained for. It had to happen within 30 minutes throughout their training.
Yeah, otherwise the pizza was half off. Right?
They pulled it. They pulled it off in 27 minutes.
Wow.
Now,
Even with the one crew going off to the other mission, they were then picked up by one of the other helicopters and moved to the right place, and then the extraction took place from there.
Pilots got balls of steel. The Raiders got balls of steel. The entire mission is absolutely a tactical success. You could not have planned this thing any better. The problem is, Remember earlier that I mentioned that Henry Kissinger wanted to go with the November timeframe instead of the October one? Well, apparently due to some flooding issues and a lack of updated intelligence, the prisoners had been moved to a different camp. So they were about 15 miles away in a different direction. So it's pretty nuts here. Now, by the way, the extraction gets a little interesting for them because while they had a relatively quiet entry into the country, on their way out, the choppers...
due to the diversion that was going on.
Oh, yeah, the mass bombing from the Navy planes and the Air Force planes.
Right.
They're not exactly getting that same cover of darkness on the way out. So the extraction gets a little bit choppy, if you will, because the helicopters are now forced to dodge anti-aircraft fire and SAM missiles. All right? So there's a couple of times when some of the guys are, all of a sudden, hey, why are we vertical? Hey, now we're horizontal. Hey, what's because we're dodging.
And we didn't lose anyone.
No, there's one casualty of the ankle, and then there's a casualty of a guy who I believe was shot in the leg, but non-fatal. So this
I'm talking about just dying. No one died. Like none of our boys died.
We did not lose a single. That's why it's considered a tactical brilliance in terms of its success, right? But here's this is my favorite little part of the story. I found this. I couldn't confirm it, but it makes a lot of sense to me. It came out of just the one source. I like to try to have two sources to confirm everything, but this is just too cool to not, even if this turns into propaganda, Dad, this is pretty good goddamn propaganda. Right. There was a master sergeant from the Green Berets who was part of one of the teams that was on the ground with the Raiders, and he realized, well, we're not getting away with any of our boys. We're not coming out with any of the POWs, so let's make sure we leave a calling card to let them know that the boys of the Green Berets stopped by. So he takes a Special Forces Green Beret with insignias and everything and nails it to a post so that when the NVA eventually comes by to take a look at it to say, who scorched this patch of earth of ours? Who just fucked up this facility of ours beyond recognition, dropped about 100 to 200 Chinese soldiers and officers a couple of meters away, and who completely fucked up this prison camp? You let them know. It's like the Joker leaving his card at the scene of the crime. It's the Green Berets were here, motherfucker, and it was us, and we can do it again. All right? So that was pretty goddamn cool.
Well, tell him how he left. What was the calling card that he left?
His Green Beret.
Yeah,
they left.
He nailed the Green Beret to a post or something, right? That
to let them know. Make sure you're aware of this. So now it would seem like you said, like we mentioned earlier, that Kissinger's delay is what kind of screwed things up here. That due to some flooding issues, the prisoners had been moved. So because of that, the raid gets lauded by the press, of course, because the press is, they're very fair press. You know what I mean? They're not going to talk to the Joint Chiefs. They're not going to talk to the guys and look at this Nixon character, can't even free a couple of prisoners.
Yeah, well, that was the thing. The media was kind of whatever they could do to put down Dick Nixon.
Well, they don't have a bend. They're completely objective.
It's straight now, right down the center line.
I can't believe I've never heard of this.
Well, it gets pretty cool because this becomes actually so the press is mocking them endlessly. Anyone who is anti-Nixon is using this as more fodder of this guy can't even get people out of here, and it's showcasing more of his mishandling of the war. As we mentioned earlier, the American people have only just recently learned that Nixon's even operating in another country called Cambodia. Turns out, though, the mission, while unable to acquire POWs in its first run, had several major effects. Number one, first of all, it's a successful mission. The boys aren't hurt, and we didn't lose anybody, and tactically everything worked out perfectly. Because of that, the blueprint has now been laid for future successful raids. This is the genesis of it all. That's that picture, by the way. Kuna just pulled it up here.
That's them.
Look at the ski goggles on top of some of those guys' helmets. That's literally something you can go buy in an Army-Navy store right now. Wow. So,
no way!
Yeah. That is where they crash landed over there on purpose. The photos are absolutely mind-blowing on this thing. I'll put as many of them up on the Instagram as I can. But like we said, here's the other things that are going involved here. POW conditions in thought. You asked this way earlier in the show, Kahuna. Isn't this endangering the other prisoners that are being kept because now they're either going to get treated more harshly or maybe even just be killed because they don't want the U.S. Now, you've actually scared the shit out of the NVA enough because they're like, whoa, all right, not only did this happen and we completely got our asses kicked, this happened close to home.
Right. This happened just outside our capital, and these guys are flying a secret mission. And, I mean, what's next? I mean, what else are these guys going to be capable of doing on the secret? So what they started to do then is to take a lot of these outlying smaller prisoner of war camps and bringing them in close to the fold. And there was a a huge influx of prisoners now into the Hanoi Hilton, where things started to get a little bit better. First off, now you started having more guys in together. A lot of the solitary confinement kind of things were taken away. So at least now you're with other Americans and you're not all by your lonesome kind of a thing. And just a whole different feeling and a morale booster of the prisoners themselves that, hey, somebody gives a shit. That finally now somebody has at least kind of come in and rescue us. And the North Vietnamese are like, holy shit, these guys pulled this off without right under our nose. Yeah, the Green Berets were definitely some scary ass guys to the enemy.
And I found out about this story from a Green Beret, which is why we wanted to cover it on the show here. So as we're wrapping up here, I do want to throw to Kahuna for a good casting couch on this. LP, I do want to ask you if you have anything else too, but I also want to mention one other thing that, again, the morale of the POWs is now boosted significantly because no one's forgotten about us over here. And all of a sudden, the NVA, because they're scared shitless and because like, oh, that we really do look bad here on this one. This is a little diplomatic egg on our face. At the Paris Peace Accords, all of a sudden they start making, and try to save face, if you will, they start saying, oh, well, by the way, here's a list of the people that we have in here. Here's name, rank, serial numbers of, we're taking good care of them. They're all at this Hanoi Hilton, and we're allowing the Americans to congregate together. The morale boost of going from isolation, being in almost deer hunter-like, for those who get that reference, deer hunter-like conditions of the infamous scene of them being forced to play Russian roulette against each other. Probably not too much of an exaggeration from some of the conditions they were in the outlying camps, to now then being brought all together. It's like, holy shit, I can't believe this guy's still alive. Oh my God, this guy's from my hometown over here. We're talking to this guy, it was in my unit at least, and now you're able to talk a little bit, and conditions are going to start to improve. And that's going to take a long time before we start to get everybody over there. But this mission also opens up the diplomatic relations. So tactical success here does not bring the boys home, but lays the groundwork for future raids in which we're going to be able to get our boys home. Then also opens up the diplomatic chains in order to start effectively getting our boys back over. It winds up being, and this is the crazy thing about Nixon. While Nixon was in office, you couldn't find many people that were willing to say a good thing out loud about him. Then again, we always say it on the show here, it takes about 30 years after a president is out of office before you can start really dissecting, well, what worked and what didn't, because now the emotion is removed over here. So this is actually a win for Nixon in a lot of ways on this one. So, and again,
this raid was the basis of a lot of future raids. I mean, the Israelis copied this with their raid on Entebbe. A lot of the people that were involved with this particular raid were also involved with the planning for the Iran hostage crisis that had some difficulties in some landings, but a lot of the basis on more successful missions. And this wasn't the first time that the United States did whatever they could to go in and release or rescue their POWs. But
no man left behind. You are not forgotten. It's super important. It's extremely important to me on that one here. Anything else you have on your way out before we throw to Kahuna for the casting couch?
I just got to throw in one guy that was involved with this mission. You mentioned earlier that Bull Simons was involved with the rescue of some of the POWs during the Second World War.
The Bataan Death March?
The Bataan Death March survivors who were then put into a prisoner of war camp in the Philippines. And Bull Simons was involved with their rescue. There was another guy that was with him at the same time, a guy by the name of, his nickname was Pappy Kittleson. Pappy was the youngest member of that rescue mission in the Philippines for the Bataan Death March survivors. But he also happened to be the oldest member of the rescue team on this whole Ivory Coast thing. He was, I believe, 56 years old, a sergeant, 56-year-old sergeant, boots on the ground going in to rescue the prisoners of war at Son Tay. So he's absolutely a badass. He started out as an Alamo Scout, which was the precursor to the Green Beret.
Well, it's full of American Special Forces is full of a lot of people that you can very easily be proud of, and thank God they're on our side. That's really kind of how I look at it. But as a veteran, I'm very proud of this story in particular here. And again, the story was taken off of a Green Beret's Instagram. That's how I found out this thing fucking even existed. So pretty cool on that. So real quick, also want to offer up a couple of quick shout-outs if I can. One former guest of the show, Lynette Palladino, is a friend of mine, also a Army National Guard member who's deployed overseas multiple times. Very funny chick. Very good guest on the podcast, too, by the way. She's actually the finalist for, I believe it's the Latino HBO Comedy Awards or something like that, where she is going to be featured on television, I believe, on
That's
HBO.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's HBO Latino. Yeah, so, I mean, I won't understand what it is, but I will cha-cha-cha-cha with her.
Come on.
Also, a friend of mine, actually, Cisco Duran's in the same finals with her that I met while I was working down in Florida. So very excited for the two of them on that one. Of course, also, I want to plug another podcast if I can. Just some good people out there. Of course, you guys know that I got a lot of. I'm very lucky to have good friends in comedy. If you can check out, there's a show called Irish Goodbye with my friend Mike Cannon, who came on and talked to us about MK Ultra, and Mike Feeney, who I think has gotten too Hollywood for us now, Dad. I don't think we're getting him.
No.
But no, I'm teasing. But those two guys have a great show over there. Please check them out. Podcasts are an important thing right now, guys, because it's how a lot of the comedians in this second potential shutdown or the lack thereof returning live comedy work, especially with the inclement weather on the East Coast, the podcasts are how the comics are making their money. So I want to support those guys if you can. Also, my buddy Pete Stegmeyer, who was a great guest on the show, he came on for the Jesse James episode. He has a really cool podcast called I Can Steal That, which we did a crossover episode of. And Pete just does great work. He's a guy where I'm almost like, are we doppelgangers for each other in terms of, like, we sometimes have a similar mind on some stuff to the point where it gets a little bit creepy. But check out those shows if you can over there. And then, of course, hook up, go check out our boy. You know what, Dad? I'm going to say it. Let's get in the Christmas spirit. Support local musician, independent filmmaker, all-around handsome boy, sex icon of the 2020s, Christian Cortez.
Hi, guys.
You know him as the Kahuna, but please support his album. Check him out over there, man. I want nothing but success on that. I want limited success, though, because I heard you're trying to move to California, and that ain't fucking happening.
Well, to be honest, that move is like, as I said when you were watching that, it's like I want to at least establish some sort of business out there, because I've come to realize that Jersey's my home. I love this state. Even though I'll talk shit about it up and down, right, left and right, I love it here. I don't mind the cold all that much, even though, as anyone will say, on certain days you fucking hate it. But like it's just where we've had got my roots.
Weirdly, no Jersey connection this week, which I was
really.
Yeah, we couldn't find
nothing.
One.
Fort Monmouth.
I tried. I kept checking for birthplaces of some of the generals. I kept checking for all sorts of stuff on this one. But I do want to say this, Cahoons. I want you to take us home here, buddy. You got a casting couch.
I do.
I got a feeling it's Bull Simons. Who's playing Bull Simons in the movie about the Son Tay Raiders?
I'm going to just cut to the chase. I'm casting Kevin Costner as Bull Simon. Because he's the way that I've got this energy for this movie version of it, I need someone that's able to bring that calmness but could easily in a minute fucking snap into action. And I feel like Kevin Costner could easily pull that off. As far as also bringing some awesome dramatic acting chops. My runner-up also choice was Stephen Lang.
Stephen Lang's a good one here. So Costner nowadays could probably play this role. This isn't like 80s, 90s heartthrob Kevin Costner.
No. This is Man of Steel era Kevin Costner too, which is something I never thought I would still say, but still.
I was going to get the guy from who played the original lead on Dragnet, Dad.
Dragnet.
Joe Friday, who didn't move his arms when he walked.
Yeah,
that's kind of the kind of dude that Bull Simons is. But it's definitely there's a lot of good people.
The old
in this
show
one.
or the
old TV show.
So starring Jack Webb, I think. Would be the guy there.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
So Jack Webb would be, because he looks like him too. The guy just has a face carved out of granite where you do not. This is a Jewish fella you don't want to mess with. Okay.
See, you know what's crazy though? Like if they were to make a movie about this, I wouldn't want them to do it now. Like I feel like the prime era for a movie like this to be made and done was the mid 70s to early 80s. Because I feel like you could. Because like there's a certain level of action you expect in movies like that now. But back then, it would have been a bit nuttier. You know what I mean? Like, they would have went a little crazier with it. We would have seen Schwarzenegger in there for some reason, maybe Bruce Willis. But,
they did actually try to make this movie in the 80s, but instead of Prisoner Camp, it was just they made Predator.
Yeah. Well, also, Stallone had that whole prisoner of war rescue thing too, didn't he?
Well, Chuck Norris did 2 missing in action movies where he was freeing prisoners of the Vietnam War. I believe maybe Stallone had something with Rambo where he was going after some guys that were being kept. And then there's that hilarious line in Hot Shots Part 2 when they're going to go in to rescue the troops. And Charlie Sheen's putting together his crack team, definitely a spoof of all the movies of the era. And they, as the torturers are about to sit there and torture the guy, the American pilot goes, "There's nothing you can do to me. I've been married." Twice. But guys, if you love the show, man, we love doing it for you. This one went long, but you know what? We had a good time doing it. It was good to have the Kahuna back in here. It was good to distract my father from the fact that part of his jaw got removed surgically the other day. And it's just a good day. It's a good day to be here doing this thing. I want to have as many great episodes in studio as we can before I head down to Florida. The quality of the show will not dip down, though. I refuse to let that happen. We're going to make some stuff happen here, guys. Ming's working his evil magic for us. The Kahuna's still going to be involved. Me and my dad are going to be able to talk. We got all sorts of good stuff set up and coming for you. The Patreon, I promise you guys. So the episode for November, Patreon was going to be the War of 1812. We got involved. I don't mind writing a podcast, guys. I can't write a book. All right. So we wrote the first half of that one. This month, we actually do have a date in mind already to come in and record. We will have the second part of 1812 will be available for December. And that will not be your only Patreon exclusive episode here. There's going to be another one that's going to come out on a little raid that went down, a similar raid from a different time period that's very, very important and is getting remembered quite fondly here. So we'll leave you guys on that one. Go ahead and do me a favor. Join us over on the Patreon if you want. Just $5 a month, the cost of one large cold brew over at Dunkin' Donuts, which I proved on my way down here.
Absolutely,
right? $4.77, you bastards.
Right.
You know how much podcast I can get for this instead? And they don't double it down with ice. But all of that being said, guys, the Patreon is what keeps the weekly show free. I want to keep doing this thing as much as possible, all right? The founding losers, you guys are extremely important to us. If I do not have your address already, make sure you get that to me before Christmas when I leave. I need to have all these things mailed out so you guys can get your merch, all right? It means a lot to us, the support we get over there. If you guys cannot donate or you don't want to be a member of the Patreon, I totally understand that. Leaving us a written review, a positive written review, and then maybe saying something specific about the show, not just like "great job, guys" or whatever. Say something you like about the show, make a comment, whatever. We get so many awesome reviews, and that's really what makes it pop, if you will, in the comment section. And that way we can also downplay, again, that cheap fuck who decided that because we didn't write a book for him about Dick Marcinko, he had to give us 3 stars. Maybe 3 stars was okay. He could have been way worse to us. I'll be fair to that guy on this one. But,
way to patronize the patrons.
Yeah. We also got a couple of 1-star reviews, which I'm convinced is a girl I didn't call back. But all that being said, that was the Kahuna Behind the Ones and Twos. This was a Shared Universe podcast studio in Eatontown, New Jersey. Mike and Ming took great care of us as always. My dilf of a dad, Larry, anything to say on the way out?
We're out.
Guys, my name was KP Burke. Feel free to check the show out at American Loser Podcast over on Instagram. And, of course, guys, that was Operation Ivory Coast, American Loser.
American loser the day I was born. An American loser the day I was born. An American loser the day I was born.